state and society are constantly pressurizing us to toe the line, to suffer the silly conventions, and to wear the uniform of opinions. So can we be free? Do we have such spaces where you and I can think our thoughts, feel our emotions, live out our desires, and act as per our will? Of course, a basic level of individuality is given to us all. How many of you sitting over here, for example, may feel that you are just an extension of me, or the person sitting next to you is merged with you? No one, right? That is because all of us have gone through an early period of differentiation, a process of sorting out a me from not me. A young child very early in life realizes that while this hand is hers, the rattle that she's holding is not hers. This becomes the basis for a recognition that we are separate from others, that my body, my thoughts, my emotions are different from that of others. Of course, this kind of individuality is not problematic. What becomes a problem is our need as adults to be individuals in our own rights, to be unique and independent. Some people see that as a threat to social order. Some others feel that it is self-absorption and narcissism. Is that true? I don't think so. Because what I see is a coexistence between the needs to relate, to help others, to be involved with others, as coexisting with the needs to be unique, self-governing, and independent. We see the examples of this all around us. For example, one of you sitting over here may be in love with someone who belongs to a religion very different from yours. Someone else may be thinking of dropping out of college and pursuing something else. You will be very likely to be thinking what your parents will be thinking about it. There is an internal debate, a discussion that we have with parents who are inside of us. In our mental lives, there is inevitably someone else who is involved as a mentor, as a protector, as an opponent. The challenge of individuality is then to continue to be our own selves in the context of an ongoing relationship with others, be it peers, be it parents, and be it co-workers. My search for forms and images of individuality are not about freedom to purchase and consume, a sense of I that stems from the fact that I can choose to buy this pair of jeans, a pair of Nike shoes, an MBA degree from an institution. Of course, the way we style our bodies, our clothes, our house and car, our leisure time preferences, the holiday destinations that we go to, and our eating and drinking preferences, they all define and communicate our identities. But what I have in my mind today is more substantial and lesser explored avenues of freedom that is available to all of us. Well, if some of you have begun to feel that why am I so preoccupied with the idea of individuality, let me give you my reasons. As an Indian, I feel a thrust towards group loyalty, privileging duty over desire, a strong need to be emotionally interdependent on each other, and to fulfill our reciprocal obligations. That leaves me wondering, where is the individual in the web of interconnectedness? Secondly, I don't think this is a uniquely Indian scenario. The individual is under siege everywhere, and the struggle to maintain our freedom is a universal struggle. So the first image of individuality that I offer to you today for consideration is that of dream and fantasy. Our inner mental life often serves as a refuge from reality. It helps to preserve our individuality in the face of collective pressures to conform. Whenever a lecture becomes too boring or the present reality becomes too threatening, don't we escape into the world of imagination and daydreams? It is there that we get relief from the tensions of our everyday life, and it is there that we imagine the impossible and the forbidden. Cinema also, I think, embodies such fantasies. It enables us to create worlds of imagination from where we can carry on our long-standing quarrel with reality. I'm a great movie buff, and I often wonder why so many of our Hindi films are love stories. This is epitomized in the iconic song, "Pyar hua, ikrar hua, pyar se phir kyun darta hai dil, rasta mushkil, मालूम नहीं कहाँ मंजिल." The lovers in this song are sharing their social apprehension about what could be the kind of impediments that can line their path of love. Of course, in that sense, love is a challenge to the keepers of tradition. It is a subversion of the acceptable norms prescribing relations between sexes. The fantasy element of films ensure that there is a happy ending in the films. However, sadly, reality may not always be commensurate with that. The second image of individuality that I wish to offer to you today is that of the spiritual quest. People all over the world embark on this journey of spirituality. This is a journey towards greater self-realization, self-poise. It is also a critique of materialism, and it offers a vision of the new world. In the Indian context, however, it acquires a special significance because it offers a counterpoint to the family-based model of self. In India, families and family relationships are very important, and thank God for that. There is a pressure however, on us to inculcate a feeling of we-ness, to preserve family honor, and if I commit a wrong deed, then it reflects badly on the entire family. Now, in such a scenario, the spiritual journey provides more personal space and individualized functioning than the rest of the culture. However, don't get me wrong, non-attachment, which is a goal of spirituality, does not mean cutting cords with people around us. It is a kind of spirituality while being in the world. It helps us to lessen our dependencies on people around us, but at the same time, being responsible, responsive, and caring towards them. The third image of individuality that is there in my mind is that of patienthood. And here, I mean mental illness. Insanity is often the last and desperate effort of an individual to continue to live out what is unacceptable and forbidden by the society. Sudhir Kakar, a famous Indian psychoanalyst, relates an example of a 28-year-old man, a psychotic patient who comes to his clinic accompanied by his father and elder sister. Both of them share their understanding of the patient's illness as that of unnatural autonomy. They both said that the patient was extremely stubborn in pursuing whatever he wanted without taking the family wishes into consideration. So what was unnatural about it? What is unnatural about it is the fact that in the Indian scenario, as is the case in many collectivist cultures, that the need of an individual to assert oneself at the cost of family wishes is considered to be inappropriate. And so what caused the breakdown for the person? It was the stress of the conflict stemming out between the needs to assert oneself and the family pressures to conform and to fit in. Thus, so madness is the result of social oppression, but at the same time, the symptom is also a site of protest against social oppression. As Erik Erikson, another psychoanalyst, perceptively remarks, we may begin to recognize our patients as inverted dissenters, too sensitive for simple adjustment. In this novel, Bell Jar, written by the very famous author Sylvia Plath, the female protagonist suffers from depression and suicide. And her symptoms were because of her intense needs to fit into the society, but at the same time, inability to fit into the society because of the restrictive roles offered to her as a woman in the American society of that time. Thus, her madness was actually an act of authenticity, a rejection of a false life of pretenses. All these three images of individuality that I offer today for your consideration give us the hope that yes, indeed, there are spaces available to us where we can be free. Fantasy and dream provide a resting space away from the encroachments of external reality. It is also the wellspring of our creative imagination. Spirituality allows us to move away from the potent possibilities of feeling hurt, angry, disappointment, as long as we are a part of the material and social environment. Or put better, as long as we are enmeshed as in the social and material environment. And the image of patienthood is an act of authenticity. It is also, patienthood and madness is also a wildly charismatic and inspirational area of our subjective experience which we would like to actually re-explore. So what is it? Is individualism all good? No, I'm not saying that. We all are aware of the dangers and excesses of individualism. What I'm suggesting over here is healthy individuality. Healthy individuality that stands for creative deviancy, for the freedom to live up to the powers of our imagination and feeling. Don't all cultures celebrate their thinkers, philosophers, discoverers, inventors, entrepreneurs, people who dared to walk on the path less traveled? All cultures and its institutions, whether it is family, educational institution, or work organizations, should give its members opportunities to dream, to dare, to court misery, to court failure, and to be free. Individuality is the link. Cooperation is the chain. Unless we are free ourselves, we cannot expand freedom for others. Unless we are free from the dynamics of domination and submission, we will continue to unleash violence onto others. In fact, family, the institution of family, which is considered to be under threat everywhere, I believe it will continue to remain as a vitalizing institution in all our lives if it gives greater freedom to all its individuals, nurture the potentials of its members beyond the prescriptive roles and responsibilities, at the same time taking care of its worthwhile traditions. I end by saying, thinking on oneself is not an act of unproductive deviation. Rather, it is a voyage of discovery and creation. Thank you.